are you talking about? I posted a video on my other page. I just posted a video now. I'm going to go back to talking about weight loss content. I think I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to go all the way in with it to piss people off. I'm going to do it. Well, remember, I don't know if you missed it, guys, but I was talking about Uncle Reggie getting on that stuff, and Grandmama and them had to go down to the she had to go down to that go down to the house to go get Loretta. Actually, I did not go to the gym. I did not. But you know what? I was like, you know what? Let me be easy with that, because I did get on my Peloton earlier. And plus, I'm going to begin a fast tomorrow. I'm going to do a 3-day fast tomorrow. How tall is you? I'm 5'10". But I made a video just now because I saw this video of this other content creator, and she said that she had been on Ozempic for 2 years and hasn't lost any weight. Why would I lie about my height? 5'10" isn't even that tall. Isn't 5'10" kind of considered short? There's no reason for me to lie about my height. It really isn't. Probably the black woman, probably. I know. Ozempic will only have you lose 10 to 15 pounds max. Well, here's the thing about Ozempic and other drugs like Mounjaro and whatnot. They're just appetite suppressants. That's all they do. Now, are scientists finding other ways that the drug helps with, like, improving non-alcohol fatty liver disease and glucose control, whatever, blah, blah, blah? Yeah. Inflammation, yeah. But that ain't got nothing to do with weight loss, okay? It ain't got nothing to do with weight loss. If you want to lose weight, all you need to do is just cut back on the amount of calories that your body simply needs. It's just that simple. But I made this video because I've been seeing consistently now a lot of people posting that they're starting the carnivore diet, right? And it is this one white girl, and she clearly, and I'm not trying to be funny, it's clear that she has a food addiction, eating disorder, okay? Because one thing that a lot of people who start the carnivore diet don't want to admit to, and I know this is the case because I was this way, you just have still a desire to eat a copious amount of food, and you want to eat very savory, fatty food. And the carnivore diet is a way to have an excuse to do that. Because the reality is, the science behind the carnivore diet, behind low carb keto diets, high fat, high saturated fat diets, it's junk. And they're willfully being obtuse and ignorant to the reality that eating a copious amount of red meat and saturated fat is just outright bad for your health. Not to mention, even in the short term, going on an extremely low carb diet like that for a very long time, you're going to have electrolyte imbalances. It's going to mess with your sleep, your cortisol levels. Like, a diet like that really should only be ran like 2 weeks at the most, and then you do a refeed with some carbs to reset your leptin levels. But to be on carnivore for an extremely low time where you're eating, and I'm not saying low carb. Low carb is different. Low carb, you're talking about eating, generally speaking, less than 200 grams of carbs a day. And to be honest with you, there's nothing wrong with being on a low carb diet, because some people just tolerate carbs better than others. Me personally, once I go beyond the threshold of around 250 grams of carbs, I start to get very bloated. But the reality is that when I cut back on carbohydrates, and I've tested this multiple times, it keeps me feeling less bloated. I don't have brain fog. I have way more mental clarity. I have way more mental energy. And I exercise better. And I function better on a moderately low carb diet. I wouldn't say going too super low carb, but I say moderately low carb, or generally around 150 to 200 grams of carbs a day if you're active. But yeah, low carb works for a lot of people. And I would argue it probably is going to work for the vast majority of people, because there's no reason why anybody should honestly be eating more than 250 grams of carbs a day. That is a lot of carbohydrates from grains, from fruits, now, if you're talking about getting carbs from vegetables, then that's different, because there's so much fiber packed in fruits and vegetables that it honestly, you're not even absorbing those carbs, right? But when you're talking about bread, grains, pastas, potatoes, that's where you start to run into trouble. Rice, that's where you really start to run into trouble. But let me just say this. Well, I was in a parking lot of the gym trying to do this appeal for TikTok, because you don't want to let those appeals fester too long, because then they strike down your account. It messes with the algorithm, and it's nonsense. But they did ban me they took down my live, saying that I was bullying people. And nope, raw meat, butter, and eggs. No. I don't know about no raw meat. No, I don't do raw meat and butter. And that's something else too that really gets under my skin about people promoting the carnivore diet, is to see them literally dousing meat. Mind you, ribeye steaks. And ribeye steaks are probably the most fattiest cut of steak you could eat. But to douse it in butter, like, what is the purpose of that? And then the thing about people who do carnivore and all these keto diets, they're like, well, calorie deficit doesn't matter if you're doing keto or carnivore. Yes, the fuck it does. That is how you lose weight. That is literally how you lose weight. You lose weight by being in a caloric deficit. That is how body fat lipolysis works. When your caloric intake goes down, there are signals in your fat cells that go to your brain, that signals to your brain, we don't have enough energy. And as a result, your brain then signals and sends signals back to your other hormones to start to tell the fat cells, we need energy though. We need glucose. How are we going to get it? Fat cells are like, don't worry, I got you. We're going to break down these fat cells into triglycerides. These triglycerides are going to get broken down into glycerol. Glycerol is going to get converted to glucose. It's just that simple. Don't make this shit any more complicated than what it needs to be. Don't. Now, I will say this, a high protein diet is the best thing to do, because I will tell you that shit will kill your food noise. Because I'll tell you, I did some experimentation last week. Eating 180 grams of protein, 200 grams of protein, you're not going to want to eat. You are not going to want to eat. You're going to be so full, you're going to be like, I don't feel like eating. What I started doing was taking eggs and very lean ground beef, mixing them together with some vegetables. I was like, God damn. And I only did that twice a day. And that was like 1,000 calories. And I was like, what the fuck? I drank a 70-gram protein shake earlier. I did not feel hungry, right? Because protein is extremely satiating. Not to mention, here's something else too that a lot of people don't know. And I just recently found this out, and I've heard about this, but I didn't quite understand until recently. Have you guys heard of the thermic effect of food? Do you know what the thermic effect of food is? So essentially, to break down food, right, your digestive system, to break down food, you generally need around, like your body will use maybe 1% or 2% of the carbs that you're eating. It'll break down those carbs into energy to use to, it'll break it, like it uses the calories in order to break down food. And then it's like 1% for fat. Do you know that with protein, it's like 20 to 30%? So that means that if you can imagine, for every 1,000 calories worth of protein that you eat, you're using anywhere between 200 to 300 of those calories from protein in order to use the protein. So if you're eating, let's say, 250 grams of protein, you're really only using about, what is that? Doing the math in my head. You're using about anywhere between 190 to 200 grams of the actual protein. That is a significant difference, because that can add into pounds. That could explain why now, I get why now nutritionists say you should be eating a high protein diet. Well, I know it's calories, but what I'm saying is that for every 200 grams of protein, for every 200 calories that you're eating from, let me backtrack here for a moment. I just confused myself. So 250 grams of protein is 1,000 calories, right? So if you're using 20 to 30% of those calories to actually break down the protein, that's going to translate to around 40 to 50 grams of the protein that you're eating. You see what I'm saying? So when you eat 250 grams, you're only keeping like 700 to 800 of those calories, which is the equivalent of, like I said, 40 to 50 grams of protein. That is a huge difference, because it only takes 500 calories of a surplus a day to gain 1 pound of fat. Are you actually a dietitian? I didn't know that. That's crazy. So you obviously know about the bullshit when it comes to dieting then. And all the people talking about eating carnivore and eating high amounts of saturated fat and shit. And like you mentioned, I did say, when you said filet mignon, which you said that, I was like, damn, how do you know that? Because typically speaking, you see a lot of people eating ribeye. Well, what people don't realize is that filet mignon is the leanest form of beef. But that shit is expensive. So I know you running up a check. No, not running up a check, but you spending a good pretty penny on that damn filet mignon. Cause that shit is expensive. Cause what is it, like $10 a pound or something like that? No, it's more than that. How many grams of protein, though, isn't like in a pound of filet mignon? Well, no. Yeah, it would have to be very high then. I'm going to go get me some. You said bison is better? I don't care if it's bison or not. That shit, I can't do all that. They stay kicking you. Who is they? What happened? Somebody's already commenting on my video. Let me download TikTok. Hold on, friend. Let me download this other. Is red meat every day okay? No, it's not. I would not eat red meat every day. Because there's other compounds in red meat that increases your risk for cancer. Especially processed red meat. I wouldn't do it every day. I think maybe twice a week is healthy. You really want a variety of food. And red meat every day, though, that's going to get bored really quick. I'll tell you, though, don't do no chicken breasts every day. Oh, somebody's already commented on my videos. And you know what's so crazy about that? The fact that people just get so triggered by the fact that I am just literally acknowledging the fact that so many bigger people, and I see this over and over again, and I don't know why people just get so offended by this. Like, if you are big, if you are fat, you only got fat for one reason. It's because you just eat too much food. It's just that simple. I don't know why people seem to get so offended by this. You are fat. We are fat because you are just consuming too many calories. You may not know it, but that's the reason why you gain weight. That's the reason why your ass is big. But fat people are some of the most delusional people that you will ever encounter when it comes to this. It's like they just don't want to believe it because and I get it because of all the shame and guilt associated with acknowledging the fact that you've just been overeating, right? So I understand, I completely get it. But at the end of the day, if you can't be accountable to this reality, right, that you're just consuming too much food, you're never going to lose weight and keep it off for good. I don't know whose lights are those in the back. Our hormones out of whack. That's why we emotional. I have had a lot of spiritual work along with the journey. You know, part of that is that I think there's a lot of accountability that goes along with that because I think a lot of bigger people are also dealing with some underlying mental issues. But at the end of the day, regardless of whatever emotional or mental issues you have going on, the reality is that you just are still eating too much food and your coping mechanisms are all fucked. Your way and another thing that nobody wants to seem to acknowledge is that there is such thing called hedonic eating. Some of us, unfortunately, we derive more pleasure from food than other people. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. You just got to know your triggers. Some people just get a high. It's not like, using drugs or anything, but some people derive more pleasure than normal from food. Sugar makes certain people feel good. Some people love to eat food, and it's just a reality of human existence. And there's no reason, and I feel like the one thing that people need to realize, and what I said in that video, is that you want it to be a caloric deficit. You want it to be this simple. Literally, you want it to be that it's just that you're eating too much food. Because here's the thing. If it's not that, then you're screwed. Because the fact that it's just as simple as your food intake is just super high, that means all you got to do is cut back on your food and you're going to lose weight. Yeah. But it's like, even like with me, earlier tonight, I had some jerk chicken. I ate it. But there was a part of me that was like, I wanted something else. I wanted something more. And my brain was just hooked to wanting um, something sweet. I don't have any takes on UFOs. I don't know anything about UFOs and stuff. I just want to, and I kept watching these videos about, I've lost about 40 pounds. And I kept watching these videos about the brownie from Crumble Cookies. And I knew good and goddamn well going into that crumble store that I wanted that brownie. And it was 1,200 calories. And I ate it. I don't give a fuck. I'll gladly admit that it was probably 12 to 1,300 calories on top of my jerk chicken, which my total caloric intake for the day is around 22 to 2,300 calories. But I can't eat anything else because I know that if I exceed that, then that's going to take me out of my deficit, right? Somebody said, why do we want food so bad? That's just our brains. Our brains are designed to make us go out and seek food. And unfortunately, it's one of the downsides to our evolution, our brains. And unfortunately, because we live in a very food, what do you call it? A there's a term actually for it. It's called an obesogenic environment, technically speaking, when you look at the literature in public health. But we live in a food rich environment. There's a million ways you could get food living in a big city. Like a food abundant environment. Like you can literally go out there and essentially get anything you want at any time. Like right now, I'm behind the Jewel Osco. That's a grocery chain in Chicago, right? They close at midnight. They close in about 20 minutes. Soon as they close, if I still want to get something to eat, there's a Taco Bell down LaGrange Road. There's a McDonald's up Manheim. There's gas stations with all types of junk. Potato chips, honey buns, candy, snacks, whatever. There's a Wendy's right around. What do you mean? How do I know all these places? I mean, these are major streets. I know. I mean, I know all these places. I mean, I've been there. I live in a major city. I live in Chicago. I'm just thinking off the top of my head though. I drive up and down the street. All these and don't act. And here's the thing that blows my mind about this. Oh, there's Dunkin' Donuts too. Dunkin' Donuts. But let me just also make this comment. The other thing that is also holding people back when it comes to their weight loss journey is that you are falling for other people's moralizing traps. You are letting other people make you feel inferior to the fact that because you're bigger, that you're letting other people feel like they're better than you. And the truth is, the vast majority of Americans at some point in their life will gain weight. So it's not a matter of if, but when. So, and I notice a lot of younger people tend to do this. And it's very easy when you're 21, 22, 23 to sit back and be like, well, I'll never gain any weight. Well, you say that now. But when you get hit with losing a job, or you go get married and you get very comfortable in your relationship, you have kids, you're up all night, you're working around the clock, before you know it, you're going to start to lose some of your habits, and then you're going to get on the scale one day and realize, damn, I put on 30 pounds, I put on 40 pounds. People don't intentionally go out here and deliberately want to go and gain weight. But I think what happens is that a lot of people let other people, especially on social media, moralize weight loss. That's it. And then you feel so inadequate and inferior because then you see other people and you're like, oh, well, I feel like I saw this one video. And let me tell you, there's this guy who made this video. He was doing the boot camp. And he was like, God doesn't like fat people. God looks at you as being gluttonous. And I'm like, if you're doing the boot camp and you're screaming at me, telling me that God, like, that is not motivation. That's just downright nasty. Why would you tell somebody in the midst of a boot camp, God doesn't like fat people? He hates the fact that you are overweight. That is insane. And the people fall for this because all you're doing is you're just feeding into these insane right-wing talking points that make no sense. It's one thing to take radical self-ownership over your life. It's one thing to acknowledge that you have developed bad habits. But first of all, what if I don't believe in God? Second of all, who are you to tell me what God likes or dislikes? Who the fuck are you to say that? And what I notice is the only people who perpetually promote this madness are white men. I do have copies of This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib. It's in my TikTok shop. You said find something that works for you then. What do you mean find something but that doesn't work that's not working. That's stupid. That you could be hard on yourself, but who are you to? But when you start to start using religion and spirituality and tell me what a higher power likes and dislikes, then that's where people got to draw the line and be like, yo, I don't know who that might work for you. You keep that to yourself. In your mind, your expectation is that God, your God, doesn't like, you know, fat people, but you're going to run a business and sit up there and yell that at people? That is crazy. And then the funny thing about that is, okay, the funny thing about that is, hold on for a second, I had to block that dude because that's another thing too. Uh, you're right, Jewel. You're right. Jewel? Why are you getting blocked? Hold on for a second. I don't know why your comments are getting flagged. What in the hell is going on? Oh yeah, I'm used to people in the alt accounts. I'm used to that. That happens all the time. That doesn't. I don't care about that though. I've been harassed all this year from people, in particular one account. But the thing is, I'm going to be going forward. I'm blocking people. I'm not tolerating any type of weird stuff anymore from anybody, and I'm not definitely tolerating people moralizing weight loss and trying to um, sit up here and try to lend credence to that level of disrespect and just outright cruelty. I'm not here for that. I can't do international shipping from TikTok Shop. Um, and I can't ship to Canada. Apparently, there's a strike going on in Canada. The post office stopped sending books to Canada. But all that moralizing weight loss. Oh, Amazon! Now, if you go to Amazon, you can get them from Amazon. Because Amazon does the shipping and the printing. I don't control Amazon, but I'm saying if you want an autographed copy, block them. They have the leisure of anonymity. Exactly. And then the other thing that blows my mind about this is that something else that I've noticed from this whole entire weight loss journey is that there are a lot of people, and it's really sad and pathetic if we're going to be quite honest. Because I was even telling my wife this the other day, okay? Um, I don't know why people seem to take pleasure in watching bigger people lose weight. Like, or you're watching shows like Thousand Pound Sisters or My 600 Pound Life. Because I'm like, clearly obesity to some extent is a brain disease in a lot of populations of people, and watching people who are that big struggle with their body weight, it's no different than watching somebody struggle with cancer or another chronic illness. And the fact that these platforms have literally made entertainment off of that, it's so bizarre. And then people watch it because they're like, well, I gotta watch this to remind myself to never get that big. And it's like, but you won't get that big because you don't have their brain disease, or at least you don't have it right now. I don't know, but why would you need to watch something like that in order to what do you call it, to feel better about your situation? I don't get it. Thank you so much, Danielle. And But there's this, and it's so weird seeing the spectrum. It's like on one hand you got like this really extreme fat phobia, right? Where people are just downright nasty. Like that what that guy was doing to my God doesn't like fat people, God doesn't like out of shape people or whatever. And then you got that extreme, but then you have this other extreme of people out there who like they just do not want to take any accountability for their situation and they just swear up and down that they're completely fine, they are healthy, being overweight, and that nobody can judge them. Nobody should say shit to them. I mean, really, they shouldn't, but nobody should, you know, you can't tell them anything. And then another thing is, and let me just say this, and this actually is a very larger message around self development, okay? One thing I've noticed about a lot of people is that everybody swears that their life experience is so unique to the point where they're entitled to do things on their timetable, on their timeline, on when they want to get to it. Because you think you really feel like, well, this is my life, my journey, and if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. When I get the sign from the universe, from God or whatever, then I'll do it. And the truth is, you are not special. I think people need to realize this. If you really want to accelerate your self development, you got to get to a place where you realize you are not special. You are not that unique to the point where all of life, all of reality, the universe, whatever, just cares about you and you alone, and that this is your life, your mission, your journey, and that the universe is somehow or another just your reality. You got to deal with the fundamental reality that your body that you're in, you don't really have that much control over it. And the little control that you do have, you got to max out on that shit every day because you don't you can't. There's certain things that you're not going to be able to avoid. We all, for the most part, barring some major scientific invention, we all are going to meet inevitably the same fate. You are going to get old, get sick, and then you're going to die. It is a fundamental fact of life. But one thing that I've noticed about a lot of bigger people too is that they feel like you have forever to figure it out. And this is something that even I had to come to the realization about. Like, stop playing with your life. Stop playing with your health. You are not special to the point where you think you're going to get the pass. You're going to get an exception. Like, I literally have gone to school with people who passed away from heart attacks in their 40s. Like, uh, you know, it was, I went to elementary school and middle school with one dude. He died a couple of years. He was only 39. And I think he may have had a heart attack. I literally went to college with a friend. She died from cancer. Like, your life, you're not that special in the sense that you feel like you have forever to figure it out. You don't know when life is going to throw you these curveballs or when your body is just going to give out. Yeah, 39, it can happen for a number of reasons. It could have been that, and he was big too. He was morbidly obese, like he was really big, right? But it could have been a number of reasons. He could have had an enlarged heart. He could have had gone into cardiac arrest. He could have actually had a real heart attack, myocardial infarction, a blockage of one of his coronary arteries, and died from a widowmaker. He could have had it could have been a number of reasons. But what I am saying is, you don't have forever to figure this out. You don't. So if you wake up one day and you don't, and let me just say this. This is another thing too. People have been telling me over the last couple of months, Quan Millz, he hates himself. Quan Millz is bullying himself into weight loss. Quan Millz is he um, just a number of things, right? And I notice it mainly comes from a lot of women, you know, black women, you know, and that's a subject for a different day. Because I was talking to my wife about this. I think honestly, I think a lot of us want to therapize every situation. We are so coddled living in this modern Western society where we have this false expectation that everything should be comfortable and feel good. You saw the black woman that blamed white people for being obese. Was that the lady who talked about diets being racist and that diets work differently on black bodies than black bodies? That was years ago. I think I know who you're talking about. Life ain't no game. We gotta keep ourselves accountable for our decisions. Exactly. I just think weight is such an individual thing. It's not my business to chastise it. No, well, here's the thing. I'm not chastising. Anybody. But what I'm saying is that a lot of people, a lot of bigger people, I'm telling you, there's a certain level of delusion that comes along with being morbidly obese because I don't think a lot of people realize to some extent just how big they are until certain things happen. And then you get reminded of it. And then a lot of people don't want to believe that they're that big because it also seems very daunting to have to commit to having to lose that weight. Like I was telling my wife this the other day that a lot of people are in denial about the fact that you're much bigger than what you really are, and that especially if you're a woman, there are a lot of women. I remember we were having a flat blindness is real. Yeah, it is. I was having this discussion with my wife the other day, and she even too she was getting kind of triggered. But I'm like, hey, it is what it is. Like a lot of people want to just get down to these weights that seem attainable, comfortable, because in your mind you're like, well, my goal is just to get down to 160 or 170. But here's the thing, that's still being fat. If you're a woman, you're 5'5", 5'6", there's no reason why you should be more than 140 pounds. Point blank simple. Carrying that excessive amount of body fat, it's not even just about looks. You more than likely will have higher blood pressure, more of a predisposition towards sleep apnea, probably higher cholesterol levels. Like there are clear-cut chronic illnesses associated with certain weight classes. Even I used to be delusional about this. I used to be, I just want to be like 215 or 220 and be all muscle. Nigga, that is still fat. You are 5'10". You're not a bodybuilder on anabolic steroids. Your ideal body weight should be around 170 to 180 pounds. Somewhere in that range. It could be on the lower end, it could be on the higher end. But the reality is, a man at my height, without taking any anabolic steroids, max the fuck out on a weightlifting program should be ideally no bigger than 180, at the most 185 pounds. But to play it safe, 170 to 180 pounds. And I remember years ago a dietitian told me this, and I was in so much denial about this. Because when I told her this, she was like, what? How tall are you? I was like 5'10". She was like, you need to get down to like 175, 180. And then from there, see if you could put on more weight without jeopardizing your body fat percentage. But she said, more than likely, at your height, your build, you should be around 175, 180. Well, actually, she said 180, 180, 185. But now that I know, and she was right, she was not lying. But I was hard-headed back then. I was naive, hard-headed, thought I had it all figured out. She was not lying. We carry way more body fat than what we really think. Sometimes I stare at myself in the mirror and I'll really grab the fuck out of my gut, and I realize just how much body fat I'm still carrying and how much weight I would need to really lose to get to really be lean. But a lot of people just simply do not realize how much body fat they're carrying inside of your muscles. I'm 209. I need now to be 145 technically. Yeah, and I'm telling you, listen, diet, cutting back on calories, it could be rough. When I cut back down again, and let me tell you, one of the things I realized about when you start trying to have cheat days and whatever, the following day or two, it kind of sucks because what ends up happening is your brain gets used to that sugar again. Especially if you just don't limit it to like just maybe one meal and just kind of like not overindulge. But when you get off that diet and you start going back to bad habits and you let a week or two go by where you've been eating bad and you try to get back into the rhythm of things, oh my God. The brain, your ass will be having dreams about food and shit, about cookies and shit. I went to bed, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about Krispy Kreme donuts. But that was because my brain was craving that sugar because it went back to metabolizing high amounts of carbs and sugar for energy versus just staying within a deficit and using body fat for energy. But I'm trying to tell you guys a lot, like, you don't have forever to figure this shit out. You don't have forever to figure this shit out. If you got it, like in 2025, I even told my wife this because I've said for the last fight, oh, I'm going to lose this weight. 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 And then by the next thing you know, it's May, it's September, and now it's October, and you trying to rush into all this damn weight loss in like the last 2 or 3 months of the year. Eventually, you are going to have to look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I got some bad habits. I got some things that are truly holding me back. And I'm going to tell you what is a really bad habit for a lot of people. And nobody wants to admit to this, but you probably are just spending way too much time on social media. You're probably spending way too much time on social media. You got to cut back on that shit. And another thing, one thing I have come to realize, a lot of people are just unwilling to embrace difficulty and hardship and sacrifice. Somebody in the comments of one of my videos said, literally, I kid you not, okay? Somebody said this: you can't lose weight without beating yourself up, or you gotta, I forgot exactly what she said, but it was something akin to, I forgot, but there are a lot of people out there who just want to take their sweet lily time with this shit. And it's like, at a certain point, oh no, that's what she said, Sean. Okay, you did see that comment. Yeah, yeah. She said, you don't have to suffer. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, lady? This is the problem. Y'all want to make, even like the motherfuckers who made hard 75 hard, they're not calling it 75 soft. That defeats the whole purpose. The whole purpose is you are trying to develop mental toughness because life is filled with challenge after challenge. Everybody wants life to not, and I get it, we don't want to suffer, but guess what? It is a part of human nature, human reality. You are going to suffer whether you acknowledge it or not. So rather than run away from it, embrace it. And in fact, you might have to fall in love with it. It might hurt at times, but it ain't gonna kill you. But I don't understand why people are so afraid to just run right into embracing the reality that there are a lot of things you're going to do in life that are going to quite honestly suck. And yeah, you will be mentally suffering. Nobody really wants to have to diet. Nobody really wants to have to go to the gym for 2 to 3 hours a day. I mean, unless you really like it, because I do like to exercise. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of things that we don't want to have to do, but you got to do it. You got to do it. So there's like, well, you don't have to suffer. This is the problem. This is why so many, and I used to have this mindset too. Everybody's looking for cheat codes and shortcuts and what's the easy way out, or let's not be too hard on yourself. And I see this so much in black culture because if we're going to be quite honest, black people, a lot of people, to be quite honest with you, a lot of black people, we think that racism and white supremacy has given us permission to not have to embrace the reality of suffering and hard work. I think a lot of black people seem to think that because of everything that we have gone through. Yeah, you're right, online coach. A lot of people do need mindset coaching, but I see this a lot with black people. A lot of black people seem to think that because of racism and what happened in the past, that we somehow or another we should have an excuse. We shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. Life just society, da 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 da. And I'm like, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. It should be clear with this presidential election that a lot of people don't give a fuck about black suffering or whatever you want to call it. Nobody cares. You're just holding yourself back in this perpetual victim mindset of thinking that at the end of the day, you're owed something. That life shouldn't be this hard. But guess what? It is. It is. And it's not just hard for you, it's hard for other people. And that's something else too that I noticed with black people. They seem to think that other people don't suffer. Other people don't have it as bad as we do. Well, that is just not objectively true. How do you know that? How do you know that? And I'm sorry, but I'm not even going to even live my life thinking that, because the truth is, I have it better than a vast majority of people, including white people. There are white people out there that are legitimately suffering day to day. People who have every day they're waking up with suicidal ideations. They ready to end it all. They don't know how they're going to pay their bills and shit. They ain't got no money. And they don't got nobody to come and rescue them and help them out. They don't have parents dead. They live in a trailer park somewhere. I don't know. But you sitting up here, woe is me. It's like, and then black people be walking around with the chips on their shoulder, feeling like we owe something. I saw Roland Martin on the Patrick Bet David podcast, and he's just like going off about mortgages and how black people are discriminated against. Oh, I can't say that, Jen. Damn. Okay. If they weren't born in America, do you think they'd have a different mindset? You talking about black folks? Yeah, because let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I wouldn't trade shoes. I mean, trade positions, not shoes. Trade positions with a motherfucker living in Africa or India or some of these other Middle Eastern countries. I am glad that my ass was born in the United States of America, Los Estados Unidos, in this particular point in time in history. Because, baby, yeah, we got it good as fuck. Y'all don't know. Let me tell you something. Some of the shit that you see happening in other countries, I don't get, listen, a white man could call me a nigga all day long. I am not going to Africa. I ain't going. They got rolling blackouts. They don't have no infrastructure. They got political corruption, graft, grift. They got all types of genocides and shit. Civil wars. And your ass is over here in America, in Chicago, complaining about whatever weird shit is going, and some shit that honestly has to deal with just the culture and the lack of accountability that's collectively going on in some of these inner city communities and shit. But there are people who are literally, this is the thing that people need to know. You know how bad it got to be that somebody would literally want to get smuggled, pay to get smuggled into the United States of America. Think about how crazy that is for a second. That somebody is willing to take that risk and get hidden in the back of a truck, buried, along with other motherfuckers, to get smuggled into the United States of America, to cross the borders, knowing there's a risk they might get caught, they might get detained. Because their life back in wherever they came from, Guatemala, Ecuador, wherever they coming from, is just that objectively horrible that they were willing to risk traveling thousands of miles, going through jungles and shit, being smuggled on the back of trucks, dealing with drug dealers in Mexico and shit, and traffickers, that they're willing to take that risk. People coming from Cambodia on freight ships and containers and shit to come to America. To come to America. That's why I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Listen, I know white folks, they got a lot going on. They do. America is not perfect. I will be the first to admit to that. I will be the first to admit to that. America got a lot going on, but hey, baby, listen, it ain't no motherfucking Venezuela. You not in Cuba. I saw a video what they do of teeth extractions in Cuba. Listen, I've been seeing all this about, oh, it's so perfect. Oh, they got social. Okay, you run your ass over there. Venezuela, what they got going on in Argentina, hyperinflation. Oh, man. I'm moving to Switzerland next year. It's a better country than the United States. I mean, there are some countries that are better than the United States. I'm not lying. I'm not going to deny that. But compared to some of these other developing third world countries and shit, listen. The point that I am trying to make is, again, because I'm not saying America is perfect. I ain't saying America is perfect. But I am here to tell you, why are you guys obsessed with the white countries? What you mean? A lot of these countries are not white anymore, by the way. And them white folks over there mad too. I didn't realize how many minorities they got in some of these Nordic countries. Sweden and Norway and shit. They got a lot of people coming over from different countries and living over there. Now they regret that shit. But what I'm saying is, going back to what I was saying before, I think part of being black in America is that, unfortunately, our culture has really developed this mindset of just, we're owed something, and that other people got to come in and fix our lives, or give us the resources, give us the information, and they don't, even though they oppress our lives, or give us the resources, give us the information, and they don't, even though they oppress